Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Corey Elder. I'm the acting director for Dependable Power First Kentucky. Caitlin Bunning, who many of you know, is the executive director, and I'm serving in this role as she's out on maternity leave. Dependable Power Kentucky launched in 2023 with the goal of raising awareness and building a coalition of like-minded folks around a key issue that is poorly understood and often overlooked: the reliability and affordability of our electric supply. We are a coalition of stakeholders, from small business owners, local leaders, to utility providers, and economic development groups, all working together to increase that awareness around rising threats to our grid's reliability and electricity affordability. Our priority is to advocate for policies and solutions that keep the lights on for homes, for businesses, and industries across the Commonwealth. The format for today's webinar will be interactive. First, Senator Mills will provide our keynote, and then we'll have some time for question and answers. Following that, we'll have a panel discussion with more Q&A. And when it's time for that question and answers, please type your questions in the chat. That way we can see them and we can ask them. And as I mentioned, Senator Mills will speak first. He's a small business owner, a former Henderson City Commissioner, former state representative, a current state senator, and the Senate Majority Caucus chair. He's been an authority on this issue for several sessions, and we're very grateful to have him. Senator Mills?
Yeah, Corey, thank you for having me today, and I see a lot of friends on as well. So good to see everybody. We're getting ready to get hit by some pretty nasty weather here in Northwest Kentucky this afternoon. So hopefully everybody stays safe. Corey's asked me to just kind of talk about just kind of set the table, kind of legislatively, what we're thinking about around economics and how the state is doing, and then related to energy as well, a topic that we all love to talk about. But so let me just kind of set the table here real quick and give you kind of some bullet points on how I think the state of Kentucky is doing. You may or may not be aware, but just recently, the new edition of the Rich States, Poor States came out. This is like the 18th year. And what this book catalog does is kind of rank states to other states in several different areas. And Kentucky has risen to its highest ever ranking for economic outlook in rich states, poor states. In 2008, 17 years ago, we were in 44th place. This year, we're in 27th place. So we still have obviously places to grow to and to get better at. But I think that just goes to show you that Kentucky is making, I think, baby to medium-sized steps every year in our legislative sessions to make Kentucky a better place to do business and to raise a family. So, some of the things that we've done that's helped us increase this: personal income tax reduction, right to work, prevailing wage, workers' comp cost, pension stabilization, and funding of those pensions, and increasing our budget surplus, and just in general taking a conservative approach to how we budget for state government. Right now, the biggest issue that we have looming economically looking forward for us and budgeting situation is really what's going to be the future of Medicaid, what is going to be the state's portion of Medicaid. And really there's just kind of this rebalancing of what I would consider our social safety net in the country and in Kentucky as well. How much the state and federal government are going to have to pay for that social safety net, and a lot of us will just talk about that and refer to that as overall as Medicaid. So that's kind of what we're thinking about. If you look at our rainy day fund, we've got a healthy rainy day fund in place, but we're just kind of figuring out what and how to proceed on that. So with that, the next thing, I thought I'd just kind of set the stage on just what's going on in Kentucky's power grid. What are some of the things that are current events, current activities? And many of you all that are involved in the energy business know some of these, but I want to just kind of go down them real quick so everybody knows what's going on. So what is the state of Kentucky's power grid? I would say it's fragile. And I think that that's a very kind word to say that it's fragile. We've got a lot of issues, a lot of concerns all around. But all of government, federal government and state government are having congressional hearings, and we're talking about energy. And I just don't think from y'all's perspective as leaders in the state that we cannot say that energy. We can't say it enough that energy is a concern, and we need to continue to beat that drum as much as we can moving forward. You know that Congressman Guthrie's committee had congressional hearings on the grid and the grid reliability. And I think one of the interesting things that he referred to was that, in 2035, NERC says that we could possibly have a gap of energy of 240 gigawatts, which is a huge deficit. That's enough to power over 200 million homes. So obviously, power is a concern. The other things that are going on around, there's going to be quite a bit of building power construction in the next 3 to 4 or 5 years, and it takes a long time for our utilities to lay the groundwork. Almost every utility is thinking about how to add some sort of power generation. LG&E has been before the Public Service Commission about adding things, adding gas. Kentucky Power is talking about making investments, and then so is the East Kentucky Power cooperatives are talking about adding gas to some of their coal facilities. So that is positive. We're looking forward to maybe having more capacity, but once again, we need to continue to beat that drum and say, we need to continue to focus on adding power, adding capacity for the grid in general and for our state as well. One thing I think it's interesting to note is that our Public Service Commission is operating. We talked about some of these things that are before the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission has 2 members now. We're short a member. And we've had some challenges just having staffing the PSC. So I think it's important to make that note as well. RTOs continue to put out warnings about power shortage and how that they can be assessed. So PJM, MISO, and TVA. TVA has also had some leadership changes. President Trump is, I believe, they're short a couple of members there and waiting for some nominations there. So I think it's important to understand that that's part of our state, and their leadership is on some rocky territory right now. Another interesting thing I think is that data centers are just, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Corey told me I had about 10 minutes to talk and then 10 minutes for questions. So I'm zooming through this pretty quick, just trying to lay the groundwork. Data centers we're getting bombarded in the state on interest in data centers. One of the interesting ideas that I heard when I was at the Cooperatives Electric University last week is the idea of a power tariff idea that the cooperatives have put before the PSC, and that's really to protect homeowners and businesses to where data centers aren't coming in and kind of zapping up and taking up any the very valuable available power that could be there for additional residents and business expansion. So that's a very interesting idea that I think is out there and being talked about as well. So what are some of the economic industrial trends that are going on right now that I see? I just talked about data centers. Obviously, it's driven by artificial intelligence. And we may sound like a broken record every time you're on a Zoom or on a webinar talking about the important issues, but yeah, I think that those are going to dominate the thought process here over the next 3 to 5 years. How do we get enough power to run data centers and artificial intelligence, and how do we incorporate that into our businesses and industries? I think there's going to be a lot of it. I just mentioned earlier, industrial power development, and I wasn't really aware of how busy it looks like that is going to be over the next 3 to 5 years. But like I said, it looks like just about every utility is trying to figure out a way to supplement and add capacity. I think you're going to see a lot of new manufacturing coming in. I mean, if you want to call it like reshoring from President Trump's, incentive or initiatives to bring manufacturing back to the country. And of course, that brings on concerns about power and power needs. Some manufacturing is less intense than others on power needs. And then I'm going to throw one final thing in here on industrial trends. We're going to have a task force this interim session related to aviation economic development and advanced air mobility. And when we talk about advanced air mobility, just kind of think about these personal aircrafts, kind of like the Jetsons almost. There are a lot of interest in these personal uh, uh, air mobility vehicles that may be being tested in the next 3 to 5 years, and we want to be up on that. And we want to be a part of the development, the industry that helps build these vehicles and supplies them as it comes about. So it should be an interesting task force. Then finally, so how can we promote economic growth through sound energy policy? I think these four things are very important. First is we've got to be, when I'm talking about the legislature, we've got to be cautious about adding huge loads to our system. I think right now there's two humongous data centers that are interested in coming to Kentucky or are working on coming to Kentucky. We've got to be careful that those large loads don't rob our ability to grow jobs in the state of Kentucky. Uh, Second thing is we've got to continue to think about building new capacity, and we've got to talk and think about reliability. Gas is, I think, fairly reliable, but we still have pipeline issues and deliverables of the gas to the burners. It's not as obviously reliable as coal and that coal pile sitting there on the ground, which you all know that I'm a coal guy. The third thing is we've got to do everything to conserve our current capacity, and that's surrounded by the last 2 years of bills that I've run in the legislature related to making sure that if anything goes offline or we close down any electric generation capacity in our state, that it's ready to be closed down, and there's not any outside circumstances that are pushing that closure. And then finally, I think we've got to take advantage and watch for directives from the Trump administration on innovative things might uh, that might be available for the future to help bring about more reliable power. I'm still hopeful that somehow some new coal plants to be built in certain places in the U.S. And if they opened that up to where we could, possibly have one in Kentucky, I'd love to see that happen. But we do need to watch the innovative thoughts that are coming out of the administration. So with that, I'll just kind of close, and I'm at 12 minutes. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody wants to have.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. And definitely, if you have any questions, put them in the chat box. But I'd kind of go off of what you were talking about with the investments that are coming, the potential reshoring. One thing that's kind of caught our eye is are the regional transmission organizations, the RTOs, doing enough to maintain adequacy and reliability, especially in other states besides Kentucky?
Yeah, I think I think you know, when you put several different states with several different political ideologies that are passing local laws and they're allowing their utilities to do different things, I think that puts a lot of pressure on states like ours that we're still trying to produce and be self-sufficient with our power generation. So when you have states like New Jersey and Illinois, in PJM and MISO that are almost relying totally on the grid or these RTOs for their power, it creates challenges. And I think these RTOs are seeing that, and they're trying to manage that load. And I think uh, you know it's a constant juggling hour to hour, and they realize that they've got to have more capacity, more generation, and I think you're starting to hear them encourage people to do that. And when they have a project like in East Kentucky Cooperative uh, adding this gas unit, and then also coal, adding gas to their coal plants. I think they get really excited about that. That's the type of projects, but there needs to be a lot of those projects going on to meet this demand that's just soaring, not only in Kentucky, but we're having to power other things. So we need even more capacity, generate more capacity here than what we actually need in Kentucky to help everybody else in the RTO. So uh, it's it's a confusing process of how the RTOs work together, and I think that everybody's slowly awakening to what people that work around power every day have known for 2 or 3 or 4 years, or years 5 years ago, that there was going to be this strangle hold on energy if we continue down the path of ideology versus practicality in electric generation.
Thank you for that. You actually hit on my second question as well. At times, it feels like we're kind of helpless with what other states are doing because it definitely impacts us. Joe Arnold had a question. He wanted to first thank you for your leadership, as we definitely do. We know we've seen you talk on this issue several times. But do you think your constituents and fellow lawmakers understand that electric reliability is under threat, and what can be done to help people understand?
Yeah, I really don't. I think that I think the legislators are starting to warm up to the situation. I think in Kentucky we're lucky because we have such a coal background, and most of the legislators understand the importance. But I think when you talk about, we have to think about everybody that's in our RTOs that we share power with. I think a lot of these other states don't really understand, and don't really understand that solar and wind power is totally different from base load generation, and that we've got transmission issues, we've got parts issues with transmission lines, we've got 60, 70-year-old transmission lines that need to be upgraded. I don't think legislators across the U.S. understand that completely. That's why you see, like at our legislative conferences this last year and even this year, looking forward, that everything's all about energy, data centers, and crypto mining. It's just we're trying to do everything we can, I think, to educate the legislators that are making these important decisions. Now, as far as constituents, I really don't think so. I think that constituents just are so used to coming in, flipping the switch, and expecting that to occur. And I hate to say it, but it may take situations like happened in Spain and Portugal to bring that to light. And the problem is that it's like everything else. If an emergency like that happens, all of a sudden all of our constituents are going to have their hair on fire and demand that it be changed and it be upgraded. But you're talking about, the correction is a 3 to 5 year correction if allowed to do what we need to do as far as increasing base load power generation, if we were allowed to by legislation and by environmental activists. So I don't think people really realize it, and that's why me and you and everybody on this Zoom needs to continually add this to their speeches that they give to their community and to their boardrooms, to let them know how important it is to be good caretakers of our electric capacity.
Thank you for your answer. That's the real reason why we started DPK, Dependable Power Kentucky, to build that education to this important issue before we have a crisis like Spain and Portugal, because it's people's lives that we're really, taking for granted at times. Whenever people go to flick on their light switch, this stuff matters, and we really appreciate you going in depth with us on that.
Yep.
And then got one more question for you. You mentioned some innovative things that the federal government is doing. I know you've been up to DC recently. Looking ahead to the next legislative session, is there anything that you see Kentucky could do to kind of complement these federal actions?
Uh, well, I'm really one of the main things I'm looking at is just really watching how uh, how our Epic Commission is implemented. Unfortunately, the governor's been really slow at filling that board and getting it going. The Epic Commission just picked their board of directors. They're going to be hiring an executive director, and that's really I, my hope for that commission when I put that in my bill was really to have a board or commission of experts that knows what's going on around the country and has been in that and knows where we came from 25 years ago and possibly where we're going so we can actually have an energy policy in Kentucky, and then hopefully our energy policy can help affect other states in our RTOs that we share, and be a leader in energy policy. So I'm really interested to see how that turns out, and see if we start generating some good ideas out of Epic. So, and I really do think that Lee Zeldin and the EPA is going to be really good for getting us back online. I saw he really uh, got his pen out and started striking through a lot of regulations and red tape that he saw there. And I think, 4 years of that is going to be great, but unfortunately, we need another 8 years after that 4 years to, I think, really turn the tide on energy in the U.S. So I'm hopeful moving forward, but really just kind of in a wait and see mode right now. I'm encouraged by what our local power generators are doing as far as looking at gas solutions. And I understand that coal solutions are few and far between right now, other than just keeping those coal units burning and running as long as we can. So that's what I'm looking at the next year or so. Nothing specifically targeted right now.
Well, you mentioned collaboration, and we definitely agree that's going to be what it takes. How can Dependable Power First Kentucky most effectively support your leadership and efforts on this critical issue?
Now, once again, I think it's like we're on repeat here, but I think having events like this and to continue to promote to the public how fragile our electric grid is and how important it is to have leadership in the area of practical environmental policy versus real needs in for electricity to grow our economy and to continue the lifestyles that we're all used to growing to having. So I think that's important. I think it's, you might call it PR, but getting the word out and continually to be beating that drum is so important. So I thank y'all for your work you do.
Well, we're excited to be there with you in lockstep on this issue, and thank you so much for your time today. It's always great to see you and catch up with you.
Yeah, Corey, thank you so much. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you. And then now we'll switch over to our panel. We have Tony Campbell, the president and CEO of Eastern Kentucky Power, Don Gully, the president and CEO of Big Rivers, and then we have Missy Vanderpool, the executive director of Henderson Economic Development, and Chris Girdler, Somerset Pulaski Economic Development Authority. So we're here talking about power in Kentucky's economic development. And this panel is definitely the authority on the matter. If you take a look at what Chris and Molly are doing in their respective regions to entice industry in, it's off the charts. And then you have Tony and Don with Big Rivers and Eastern Kentucky Power, powering it all, making it all happen. Tony, if you could start, but just introduce yourself just a little bit and share your perspective on this issue.
Okay, thank you, Casey. I'm Tony Campbell. I'm the CEO of East Kentucky Power Cooperative, and We have 16 members that serve a large chunk of the rural communities around the state, mostly on the eastern part, and Big River's on the western part. But most of the territory that's going to grow is in our territory. Most of the investor-owned utilities territory is being already been consumed or mostly consumed, and just don't have that growth potential. So let me talk a little bit about economic development. First thing is, we're the Kentucky Touchstone Energy Electric Cooperatives that are big into economic development, and so is Big Rivers. And I wanted to explain a little bit of why that's so important to us. You know, in our world, we have 7 cooperative principles, and one of those principles is commitment to community. And we really want our communities to grow, to bring jobs to those communities, and we feel that that's some of our responsibility to really help with that. A little bit of I want to talk about is electric reliability, affordability, and electric reliability and affordability and the safety of electricity really is the cornerstone of economic development, and really for the economy of the whole U.S., it's really electricity. You know, a number of years ago when we talked about energy, it was always oil and natural gas. They kind of set the tone for energy and economic development. But that's no longer the case. And the reason was because we had excess generation. It was never an issue with electricity. We always had backup reserves, and we're building more and had a real strong foundation. But now we've eaten away at that foundation, and renewables, we've installed a lot of those, and that's not dispatchable. And then they're closing coal plants, prematurely closing coal plants. The federal government is, and that causes a lot of problems. And we're also seeing growth like I've never seen in my over 30 years in this industry. It's unprecedented load growth. Some of it's caused by data centers, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But the fact of the matter is, now you need to keep an eye on electricity, because if we're not reliable and affordable, it's going to impact economic development. And I think we're on the precipice. Not only have we grown a lot, I think we're on the precipice of seeing a lot more onshoring, and we need to be there and be ready to grow to serve the load, and support our communities and help them grow. Um, a little bit about the coal. The first thing is, I wish the senator was still on. I mean, I am so impressed with his presentation here, because he understands the industry. He gets it. And, you know, for the last 5 years, we have been really banging away at, we're closing too many dependable, dispatchable plants out there, baseload plants, and we're not going to have enough. We're running out of reserves, and nobody was talking about it 5 years ago, but now people are starting to talk about it, and that's why the cooperatives formed Dependable Power Kentucky, was to at least try to get people to start talking about it, and it's working. And that's why I would like to invite all of you to be members of Dependable Power Kentucky, because it's for all the right reasons, for sure. And the other thing with economic development we found at East Kentucky is, it really takes a strong group of people that are engaged and committed to economic development in the local communities. I see Chris Gergler on here. You know, I just want to give him a real shout out down at Somerset. He's a big part of that. And, you know, that we as cooperatives can only do so much, and the state can only do so much, but the local leaders can really drive this home, and they're doing it. And so I want to talk a little bit about the natural gas lines into our 2 coal plants that we're in the process of installing right now. Hoping we're going to get a CPC in from the Public Service Commission. First thing is, the Biden administration passed some laws, and then one of them is the CO2 law, and we're going to be restricted. The only thing we can build is natural gas, and if we don't retrofit our coal plants with natural gas, we're going to have to shut them down by 2032, 2038 era. and we don't want our coal plants to shut down. And the senator said, "Well, I'm a coal guy." Well, I'm not really a coal guy. I'm a reliability guy. And what we learned during Storm Elliott not very long ago was that we have fuel insecurity. For decades, we've been talking about natural gas being the bridge to zero carbon sometime in the future. And right now, I believe that will probably be nuclear power. But we're 30 or 40 or maybe even 50 years away from that. I think we have to have coal plants and some new ones built to bridge that gap. And the country's not ready for that. The federal government is not ready for that. I hope this administration will push in that direction because that will help sustain economic development for the state of Kentucky. And one thing that the senator talked about was really we have a law that says you need steel on the ground. If you have load, we have an obligation as a utility to have steel on the ground to serve that load. And unfortunately, a lot of states have gone to renewables, and they're all leaning on the system, and that's really making the system weaker. And we're really banging away at that because if they have rolling blackouts, we don't want to share in those because all of our communities have invested in themselves with that steel on the ground and to keep the lights on. Um, just a couple other things. The Epic Commission, I do want to give a plug to the Epic Commission. I'm a little disheartened that it hasn't moved ahead faster, and some people are maybe not being as genuine as they need to be. But the thing that I like about the Epic Commission is it forces everybody to in front of the mirror to talk about this. If they're going to close the plant, they need to talk about how are we going to supplement that with more dispatchable generation. And so I'm hoping the Epic committee takes off. If not, I mean, I think we need to hold those political leaders responsible for not, because we're getting closer and closer to having outages, and we don't want to be a third world country. We have the best electric system in the world. Let's not let that go down. And I will say one other thing: the North American Electric Reliability Council, which is a government agency, just came out with a report yesterday, and they're suggesting that renewables that don't, they're just an inverter. They change DC to AC. They don't have any weight, any intrinsic. That's not what I'm looking for, but a big weight behind it that will support the system when it goes on and off. People turn their lights on. Nucor turns their steel plants on and off. That's going to be another issue that we're going to have to address because the renewables just won't support the system like baseload coal plants and baseload natural gas plants. And I think I've talked a lot. I'm hoping Don can probably make more sense than I did.
Well, you definitely hit on all the right things. That inertia definitely is going to be something that we hear a lot more going forward. And just got to take one thing that you mentioned. Greatly appreciate the endorsement for Dependable Power Kentucky. We're going to put our website and socials in the chat box before the end of the thing, and you can find out more about membership on there. But without further ado, Don.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. I really appreciate being on the call here. Tony, always good to see you. Good to talk with you. And Tony, he's just done a fantastic job for our industry through the years. And I've known Tony for a long time. And just to see him standing next to President Trump just a short time ago was good for Kentucky, but good for our industry. As you think about Kentucky, I've been at Big Rivers now about a year and a half, but I'm not new to the industry by any stretch. I'm an old Doug, a dumb old utility guy. And prior to being here, I was in Illinois, was CEO of a G&T in Southern Illinois, which is very much like Western Kentucky, which is the area that Big River serves. We have 3 member owners serve along the Ohio River. And we have seen a significant amount of economic growth over the last 3 to 5 years. with Nucor Steel, a new steel plant that came online up in the Brandenburg area. We saw Pratt Paper, which is a paper mill that came online. And then more recently, Blockware, which is a crypto mining operation that started operation just out in the Paducah area in the further western part of our service area. But coming out of Illinois and hearing Senator Mills earlier, I'm so appreciative of the support that Kentucky is giving and prioritizing reliability and dispatchable energy, because that's the only way we're going to continue to power economic development. As Senator Mills pointed out, and Tony mentioned as well, we have broader RTO issues. Tony operates in East Kentucky, operates in PJM. Big Rivers operates in MISO, and they are flashing the warning lights that we are going to run out of capacity as we get closer to 2030 and certainly into 2031 and 2032. The challenges there for us is that as we look to build new resources, and we're not too far behind East Kentucky, we're rolling out a plan to add generation, and you'll see more about that this fall and into next spring. But you need to have an interconnection rights and capability to interconnect to the grid. And right now, the process to do that is broken. And for us to get an interconnection on a new resource, a new gas resource, it takes 4 or 5 years to even get the answer back. And then even if you get that answer back, there may be additional costs simply because that queue or that process is flooded with the renewable generation. So consequently, those issues need to be resolved from an interconnection standpoint. We're all headed to the same place at the same time across the country in terms of adding gas generation. And when you all get to the same place at the same time, that's called a collision. And the equipment manufacturers, their queues, their backup in order to buy gas generation, what used to be a 3-year process, you're now 5, 6, 7 years out. Saudi Arabia just bought out a whole year's of production of turbines from Siemens. That just happened a few months ago. And so you have supply chain issues. And then on top of that, we need engineering firms, engineering, procurement, construction firms to help us do the design build on those. They're limited in their experience, in their depth, permitting processes. So all that being said, yes, there are real challenges in front of us. But right now, we have a good administration that's taking bold steps to help us get to the point where we need to be in adding generation. And in addition to adding, we also need to keep the coal plants we have online. And for me and for us, as we think about this in our boardrooms, we need lasting solutions. If we do not get lasting solutions, you could have a change in rule, change in regulation that happens every 4 years. Without that, our board is making 30-year investment decisions. And we're talking now, these new machines go into the $1 to $2 billion per machine. And by making those decisions, if we don't have some certainty around recovery on that for the 30 years and you have the useful life of it, we actually can find ourselves in a situation where we have stranded investment. Right now, I'm more hopeful now today than I think I've ever been, and we really haven't seen a build cycle like this since the late 90s. But I'm more hopeful now because it really is about the economy. And since it's about the economy, I think we can generate and get bipartisan support for this growth to help streamline what this country needs. I say that, and as we look forward here at Big Rivers, we really need to continue to work together. Appreciate the work Dependable Power is doing, getting that message out. And it is a complex issue, and the simpler we can make the messaging for people to understand what these real issues are, that's at the heart of trying to maintain the reliability and affordability of the grid. That's where we need to continue to work together. I'm gonna stop there.
Thank you. Well, you mentioned Pratt paper, and every time I hear Pratt paper, I definitely think of Missy Vanderpool. So that's a perfect lead in to her. So thank you.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Corey. I think that because everybody that was like our baby here in Henderson, Pratt paper, it took a lot of work. And one of the things I've heard throughout everyone's conversation is collaboration. And that's what it took to get an industry like Pratt paper here, and in collaboration with our utilities. That, I tell everybody that really is the piece to economic development. We can sell our communities, but before we get the opportunity to sell our communities, we've got to make sure that we have the infrastructure and obviously the due diligence and everything on our sites to make those attractive. And we're just very fortunate to have the collaboration with Big Rivers and our gas partners and our water utility. But there was another piece which is kind of interesting with today's conversation on that collaboration. There was another piece to that. There's another shovel behind me. One of those is Pratt's, but one of those is from Henderson Mine. We've got a coal mine that we're going to be celebrating the grand opening of soon. But collaboration, most people probably don't know that Pratt probably wouldn't be here without some collaboration with Alliance Coal and the Kraft family on some coal rights that were underneath that property. So always, if I get a chance to say thank you to them. So that's just an interesting piece when everybody was talking about collaboration, I always have to share that story if I can, because not enough people know that story and what it takes to get an industry like Pratt in your community. It takes everybody working together. And same thing on this issue. I think it's all of our jobs to spread that awareness and to share that message so that people do understand how important this issue is. And now I could talk forever about Pratt and economic development, but I won't do that. So we'll let Chris have some time.
Chris, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Missy. Giving me the time might be a dangerous proposition for everybody here, but I'll try to be as short and brief as possible. Thank you to those who have joined us for this discussion. My name is Chris Girdler with SPEDA, Somerset Pulaski Economic Development Authority. We've been around 5 or 6 years now. We're really proud of the work that our community has undertaken in trying to redefine the narrative and the definition of what is economic development. Yes, it is definitely industrial recruitment, but we are also very focused on commercial and retail recruitment, arts and entertainment, education, workforce development, tourism, and things of that nature. I say all of that to say at the end of the day, it's that quality of life initiative that has become so cliched in the last few years in the world of government and economic development. But all of that is for naught if we do not have dependable, reliable, and affordable power. Without that, all those efforts, all those great things that are taking place literally are for naught. So we're honored to be a part of this discussion. We are very proud to endorse, support, and be a member of Dependable Power First Kentucky. And we appreciate you all leading the way on this very, very important topic, leading the way on this discussion. And it's going to be exciting to see what is to come. And I appreciate the leadership of so many willing to bring this issue to the table and again, lead the way. Mr. Campbell gave us a compliment. Well, we cannot compliment Mr. Campbell and his team at East Kentucky Power enough. They're making a historic investment in Cooper Power Plant here on Lake Cumberland for the entire region, not just for our community, to ensure that we do have that reliability on the power grid that we need to ensure that the quality of life is there for our citizens and visitors alike.
Thank you. And then Tony, in your comments, you mentioned something I kind of want to dig into a little bit. Could you explore the concerns that you have with fuel security and challenges we're seeing due to the lack of new generation and adequate natural gas infrastructure, especially like we saw during extreme weather events like Storm Elliott?
Yeah, I'll add just a little bit more, and I'm sure Don can too. We've had a couple storms here that have really impacted the electric utilities. The first one was Storm Uri down in Texas, and I thought that should be a wake up call when they had hundreds of people die and billions of dollars of costs, and we just didn't change directions. And then we had Storm Elliott for us, and during Storm Elliott, there was a 6-inch natural gas valve that froze, and it shut some of TVA's natural gas plants down. It shut LG and EKU's natural gas plant down, and it shut our gas plant down. And and we had some diesel fuel, but we don't have long-term diesel fuel on site, and some had no diesel fuel. And what that really showed us was fuel security. We have a real fuel security issue when you take all of our new generation that we're building now and we're putting it on natural gas. And that's all we can do. The federal government is only letting us do that right now. But when you have a coal plant, you've got 30, 40, 50 days worth of coal sitting right next door to the plant, and you have fuel security there. And so we're really concerned that we're getting out of balance. Yeah. America's Power shared with me that during the last winter storm in January, when it got really cold there for a couple of weeks, 44% of the generation or the electricity came from natural gas, 17% from nuclear, and 25 or 27% from coal. That's getting out of balance in our country, right? Our country needs to have a balance of so much coal, more like 50-50 coal and natural gas, so they can support each other. I also think that's a big national security issue. And if I'm a Putin, I'm sitting there looking and I'm saying, wow, all I got to do is take out a couple major pipelines, and I'm going to shut their heavy manufacturing down. I don't think that's healthy, and that's what I'm really banging on now. We need new coal plants. We need to keep the existing coal plants, but some of those are going to age out. We have a 1965 vintage. It will age out at some point. We need to build some new coal plants in this country to bridge to nuclear. If you really believe that the carbon dioxide is the end of the world coming, nuclear right now is the only solution we have. And some of the environmentalists will say, well, we know renewables work. Well, renewables have worked, but they only work because we had excess generation in this country. That's drying up. That's going away. And data centers are going to make that happen much faster than we anticipated. And so we need to start building some dispatchable generation in this country. And I think Senator Mills did a really good job of saying, look, once we get to the crisis, it's going to take 4 or 5 years. Well, he's just not long enough. From cradle to grave for us, it'll take 8 years, 10 years, and probably 15, because like Don said, the supply chain is not in place to really build what we need. And so I'm hoping our country will wake up and rectify our problems prior to a catastrophic event, because I believe that we are headed for a catastrophic event in this country.
Yeah, maybe Corey, if I can just add a little bit more color to that, and Texas and the problems that they had during Storm Uri. It started on Valentine's Day on a Sunday, lasted the week, and it was because the just-in-time supply of gas was not there. Tony mentioned 400 people died. I called my local congressman the following Monday, and I said, "So what's the message in Washington?" And Congressman Boss said, "Well, that news cycle has passed. It just moved on to something else." And here we are. We had challenges with just-in-time gas. We've had challenges ourselves already in the last year here at Big Rivers in getting gas supply to the gas units we do have. On a broader perspective, we only have about 90 years worth of gas left in the ground in the United States, but we're standing on top of 400 years of coal supply. And so if you think about energy security and what we can do, there's so much more we can do with the solid fuel supply we've got under our feet.
No, you're exactly right on that. Um, what we're hearing is that this is definitely a national issue, but it's also a very localized one. Each community is a little bit different. Missy and Chris, could you tell us a little bit about how this is kind of impacting the folks there locally for you all?
I'll
Chris, you
let
want
you
to
lead the
start?
way,
Yeah,
Missy.
you go first. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be happy to jump in there. I mentioned just a minute ago, Corey, about Mr. Campbell and East Kentucky Power's historic investment in Cooper Power Plant, and a great example of that was a winter storm that we had just a couple of years ago. And had it not been for Cooper Plant, Cooper Station, as it's referred to, we would have had massive blackouts here in the Lake Cumberland region. And it's not, I think that goes to show what Don and Tony are referring to is the need for common sense, the practicality versus ideology, and have that proper planning in place. This is not one of those issues where you can take the Band-Aid approach and just automatically shut one thing down and move to another, because at the end of the day, this can be life or death for our people. If you have electricity outages during some of these cold winter months, you literally are talking life and death. Quality of life at that point is a whole nother topic, but especially for our underprivileged and our elderly and things of that nature. So I cannot emphasize enough how we need that smooth transition. We're all the above. Without question, when it comes to power availability, but reliability, affordability, and common sense has to lead the day. And we've had historic announcements from new business investment, new jobs created. Tourism levels in Lake Cumberland are booming right now. But again, if we do not have the power to supply those industries, to supply those residential homes, to supply those marinas on our lake, then again, all of that is for naught. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but this is priority number one. All else, nothing else matters outside of this. I would probably rank public safety, community safety up there with it, but after that, nothing else matters.
And I'll just add, I think it's just looking at this on a local level. We've been pretty fortunate in Henderson. Obviously, we've got Senator Mills, who's an advocate and keeping us all aware of what's going on. But we're also all pretty spoiled here with the reliability. Our industries, have reliability, and when we're working on recruitment, being able to tout the reliability that we have with Big Rivers and Kenergy makes us very attractive. But we can't take that for granted. And so we have to be, aware of how this affects everybody in MISO, all that awareness. And as we talked about earlier, one of the questions I think to Senator Mills, do the constituents understand that? And I don't think that they do. They walk in their house and they turn on their light switch and the power comes on. And so just that awareness piece, I think on a local level is part of what we are tasked with doing, is making that people more aware of that.
Thank you both for that. It definitely underscores, how impactful this is. We used to have so many folks, on different medical equipment, and when the weather is so cold, like this is, really life and death. Chris, I think your comments were spot on to that, and it's why we have so much passion for what we're doing here. And definitely thank all the community partners. I know it takes a lot to get all of this together, but it definitely matters. Um, Tony and Don, wanted to get a little bit more of your perspective on how the business plays a critical role in this equation. I know it's kind of been mentioned, but would appreciate any comments that you have. What's the number one thing that you want folks in your service area to understand about the grid and why prioritizing dependable power matters?
You want to go first, Don?
Yeah, sure, Tony. Thank you. Yeah, number one, I think just people need to understand we are part of a larger system, part of a larger RTO reliability system. We're interconnected, so state policies in other states do impact us. Yeah, number two, while we have seen these failures more recently, I am hopeful. This country, when it faces key challenges, we do find a way to rise to the occasion, and I think we're at that precipice right now. That we were on the precipice of a real challenge in front of us, but I think we'll get it done. But in order to get there, we need the support of the local and the state elected officials, and you're seeing it in Senator Robbie Mills and our legislative group across Kentucky, and the cooperative caucus is just an amazing coalition of our legislators to help address this issue. Number two, we need a streamlined approach, and need to catch a breather from EPA. For us, it's been a death by 1,000 cuts through the Obama administration up until we get a little bit of a reprieve and hit the pause button. But we do need, and with this administration, we need to lay out a long-term plan and have confidence that it's not going to change with every administration, that we can make these 30 and 40-year investment decisions that's good for not just our local economy, but it's going to be good for our country.
Yeah, I can't add much to that. One thing that Don said earlier was we're starving for predictability, because our boardroom's the same way. We're trying to make 30, 35-year decisions, and we only have 4-year presidential term federal energy policy. And at some point, Congress just has to come up with a long-term energy policy. I mean, nobody wants to take a risk of spending $1.5 billion and then have the federal government 5 years or 10 years down the road change the rules and strand that investment. And so all your end consumers, that's our investors, our end consumers, have to pay that bill. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think as we talk about it, people are starting to talk. Let's just like Senator Mills that really get it. I'm hoping that we'll bridge that gap before we get to a catastrophic event. I'm like Don. I have all the faith in the world in America.
Does anybody else have any parting comments for us? Well, I just have to say, I think Senator Mills said that in the rich states, poor states, that Kentucky has jumped up several positions over the past several years. And hearing about all the work that you all have been doing, I know you all have each been a significant contribution to getting us on that list and really improving everyone's lives in Kentucky's. And we couldn't thank the four of you enough for that. And thank you so much for joining the panel for us today. It was very educational. We definitely have had a lot of material to cover. It's a very complicated topic, but I think you all did a great job kind of piecing it down, and which is what we have to do and get that word out there and that's what we're going to be doing as Dependable Power Kentucky. So thank you for that. Wanted to just, reintroduce Dependable Power Kentucky once more. Our mission is to promote reliable, resilient, and affordable electricity supply for Kentucky by bringing together a diverse coalition of stakeholders to shift the conversation around to reliability and to inform policymakers and support policies that achieve our goal. I think collaboration was mentioned many times today, and that's definitely what we're focused on. We're going to put our website and our social medias in the chat box. I would encourage you all to take a look there. You can go to dependablepowerky.com to learn more about membership. We would definitely love to talk to anyone on the call about joining. It's going to take all of us together, one voice, to really turn the tide. We have a great opportunity right now with the changes coming in with this administration, but we got to capitalize it on, was mentioned today. Want you all to make sure to follow our socials. We have some exciting news, some new analysis that we're going to be releasing later this month. And just stay connected with us. We're going to be active, and we look forward to walking with you all on this journey.
I think you're doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Corey.